Welcome back. This is week 5 of Intro to GIS. This week we'll be talking about digitizing and geocoding. Uh, First of all, digitizing, we'll look at digitizing new features and we'll talk about some advanced tools, some spatial adjustment tools, and then we'll also talk about some digitizing sources. So why digitize? We usually use readily available data like census data, the tiger shape files, or the city parcel boundaries or something. But if you actually work for one of the data creators like the cities or the counties or the planning department, you might have to actually create these features, or if you are a realtor you might want to create a building layer or something. It really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, but again, digitizing is one of the basic things you need to learn about, because it without that you won't be able to create new features or modify existing features. um, before Before ArcGIS 10 or 9 or 8 or 7, there was this heads down digitizing, we're talking 1990s, early 2000s perhaps. There used to be this digitizing table where you actually digitize hard copy of maps into GIS by clicking on these different points on this. You place the map, a hard copy of a map on this table, and you actually click on these individual tick points, and that transforms the wire intersections into the coordinate systems of the table's coordinate system, and then you take it into GIS and you have to reproject it and retransform it. But that it's a very tedious process. It took a lot of work. So again, I'm just trying to show you how difficult it was to do it back in the day. But right now this is called heads down digitizing, because you always have to look down while you do this. And then came the era of CGI, or the GUI, graphic user interface, which means you can actually scan an image, bring it into ArcGIS, and then georeference it and start creating your features by using the inbuilt tools within ArcGIS or ArcMap. So it became a lot easier, because you can zoom in, zoom out. It became more precise, and the process became sort of like, you eliminated multiple steps by actually enabling you to do the heads up digitizing. So we already know what the GIS features are. You digitize different things, like you could be digitizing points like trees or manholes or whatever that is, or you'll be working on nodes or lines, where you know um, it could be roads or streams and stuff, and then you could be digitizing polygons. But each of these digitizing, the digitizing has three main aspects. One is a single point, single features, or nodes which has two endpoints, or vertex. Essentially is actually controls the shapes of lines and polygons. It means these vertexes are something between the endpoints, so you can move these vertices, or control these vertices to actually create polygons, or maybe control the shape of these lines. We'll see how this is done. Just giving you some of the terminology you need to know before you actually jump into this. And then creating points, heads up digitizing. What you do is, it's quite easy. When you're using heads up digitizing, you can create single point features by using sketch tools and snapping features, or you can actually use the XY events, which we already did before in this class, by using the centroids X and Y fields to actually map these X and Y event files or centroids. And then you can also create points using geocoding addresses, which will be part 2 or chapter 7, which we'll get to in like an hour or so. And then lines, you know how to create lines, starting and ending points with shape vertices as needed. And then when you create a line, if you actually open the Tiger Streets file, you can see that there is a shape file which is the polyline, and from and to attributes which has a from node to node. It has address, left address, right address, and latitude and longitude, and then the length. So these are the features that are associated with a Tiger street file. This could be very useful information, especially when you're trying to interpolate addresses and stuff, which we will get to in the geocoding part. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what the Tiger lines looks like. And then of course the polygons, 4 or more lines joined to form a closed area, we all know that. And single polygons or multi-path features, you know, we'll look at what these two are just in a minute. And then the physical attributes of a polygons include shape, area, perimeter, and shape length. So it has one more field, which is perimeter, two more fields, area and perimeter. So digitizing features, let's actually, I'm going to do this class as a combination of walkthrough and the lecture, because there really isn't much to actually talk to you about in terms of a lecture. So I'm just going to show you how to do it. So let's jump right into the exercise, which is creating a new polygon feature, which is created in our catalog. So I'm going to open up my ARC catalog here, and then I'm going to go to my so the first step is to open ARC catalog and then create a new shapefile. So we need to browse to data and find, I think it's in, yeah, it's under Pittsburgh folder, and there is something called a midhill.gdb. I'm going to expand that, and then I'm going to right click on that and say new feature class. This is actually creating a feature class. You can actually create a shapefile within the folder itself. So I can just like right click on this and create a new personal geodatabase or a shapefile. Right click and click on shapefile, and here I can create a shapefile of any feature type. You can create a polyline feature class, polygon, multi-point, multi-patch, but we're gonna name this as commercial zone, and then I'm gonna make this a polygon feature class. And then for the coordinate system, I'm gonna import a coordinate system of one of the features that I know are within the Midhill GDB. So I'm gonna scroll to my SRFpress folder, my GIS T1. Under data, I'm gonna scroll to Pittsburgh, and within Midhill I'm gonna click on anything. Essentially all these will have the same things, same coordinate system. So I'm gonna click on streets, add that, and make sure I got the state plane coordinate system south FIPS. I'm gonna use that, and then I'm going to click OK. So I created a commercial zone shapefile, which actually has a coordinate system of the same coordinate system as the Midhill features. And then now I'm going to start my ARC map and open 6.1. So once I open that, I'm gonna add the shapefile. So I'm gonna drag and drop the shapefile which is under SRFpress, data, Pittsburgh, and then drag and drop the commercial zone onto the map. So I know that commercial zone, if I open this, I know that there is nothing in there because it's an empty shapefile. We just created this a brand new shapefile. So what we can do here is add some new features to this commercial zone. So what we're gonna do is, as you can see, our map shows commercial properties, which are all these orange dots on the map. So we are gonna create some districts around these businesses, so that we identify these individual zones. So the first step is to actually commercial zone. I'm gonna change the color. If you want, you can change the color, but I'm gonna click on, make sure you have the editor toolbar right here, which is if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Right click on any empty space on the toolbars and click on editor. Once that's up, I would recommend you dock it somewhere and then click on editor and click on start editing. So and then select the one you want to edit, which is the commercial zone. So once you start that, it's gonna go into the editor mode, which means all these options will get highlighted. So I'm gonna click on create new features right here, which is, as you can see, that's the create new features at the end of the toolbar. Click on that. So once you click on that, my create new features window is docked, which means it is in auto hide mode. So I'm just gonna undock it and make sure I have it available all the time. I'm gonna click on commercial zone. So this is how you create features. You click on the commercial zone to actually start creating these new features. And then what you do, let's practice digitizing. So if I want to create like a commercial zone, I can keep clicking till I'm happy. So that's how I created a random shape, which is, this is just for practice, right? I'm gonna select that, right click on it and click on delete, because that's not what I want. And then if you want a rectangular shape, here it is selected as polygon in the construction tools. You can draw a rectangle, or you can draw a circle, or you can draw an ellipse, or you can draw a freehand, or you can autocomplete polygon, autocomplete freehand sort of a thing. But you know, these are just practice. So once I know these four are like practice, so I'm gonna undo these. Click on undo create, undo create, undo create, undo create, so that those four have been deleted. And now I'm gonna show you some more stuff. I'm gonna create a polygon. Okay, I'm gonna oh, this is in freehand, so I'm gonna click escape, click on polygon here, and as you can see, when I move my mouse on top of the streets, it's actually saying this is the street's endpoint or vertex or something, edge or something like that, because it is snapping to the existing features. So that's another thing we need to learn about, is snapping features, which we'll come back to. But if you don't see these, don't worry about it, I'll show you how to enable them. So let's learn about editing. I'm gonna draw a random shape, and now that I have the shape, I want to edit it. How do you edit an existing polygon? Click on the edit tool, which is right next to the editor, and select the feature you want to edit, and double click on the feature you want to edit. I'm gonna double click it. So once I double click it, now I have what you call edit vertices. Toolbar automatically appear. Okay, you can actually move your mouse on top of your vertices, and now you can move them if you'd like, and you can see a preview of how your shape's gonna change from the original shape. And if you want to add one more vertex, you can right click on the line on the edge and click on insert vertex and create a new shape, maybe change the shape, insert vertex. You can do multiple things here. So these handles appear when you actually move your mouse on top of one of these vertices in the edit mode. So I'm gonna click on polygon shape again, and I'm gonna right click on it and say delete. I don't want to, you know, that's not the feature I want to create. So I just wanted to show you how to actually edit these vertex in case you need to do that. So let's actually zoom into a smaller area so that we can start creating this commercial zones. So let's create a real commercial zone. So I'm gonna zoom into this area right here so that I can create some stuff. I'm gonna zoom out a little more. Okay, so here I'm gonna create a new commercial zone. I'm gonna change my commercial zone color to, I don't know, something like a light pink or something like that, because commercial zones are red. So as you can see, automatically the commercial zone color has changed. I'm gonna click on that. I'm going to create a new, I'm gonna disable my snapping so that you can see you can exactly follow the directions in the book. So I'm gonna click on editor, snapping. I'm gonna open snapping toolbar and disable all these 4, and now you don't see any of those snapping things that were coming up when I had all this on. You can see that straight centerline endpoints, everything is being identified, and I can snap to those features so that my drawing is absolutely accurate. Now I have no way of knowing whether this the feature I'm gonna create is gonna snap, but that's okay. This is just a trial run. I'm gonna create a new zone including the Webster, looks like some other street here, and Wiley Street. I'm gonna click and finish that. So once I have that, I want to move one of the vertices, so I'm gonna click on this, click inside the polygon, double click there, and then I'm gonna move this vertex to the intersection of Verdant and this little internal street. So that's how you move your vertex. So now let's see how to create a new vertex. I can right click and create a new vertex, and maybe like, and then create another new vertex to actually edit my shape to exclude this top left hand corner if I want to. So that's how you actually create new vertices. And if I want to delete this new vertex, I can delete this new vertex, and then maybe I'll move this to this end. Since I don't need this vertex anymore, I can right click and delete that vertex too. So that's how you create new vertices and delete new vertices, and you can practice on the same concept again. It's very useful to practice, as you know. And let's look at some of the drawing and editing tips, some advanced editing tools. So what if I want to create the same zone a couple more times? I want to use a copy feature, so I'm going to click on editing, more editing tools, and click on advanced editing. So once that toolbar comes up, I can select the feature I want to copy, and then click on copy, and essentially you can make multiple copies. When you click anywhere else, it's going to ask you where you want, what's the target layer. Obviously our target layer is commercial zone, so I'm going to click on commercial. As you can see, it is creating multiple copies of the same layer. You can open the attribute table, it will have the same thing. We added the same polygon twice, so I'm going to select those two and click on delete selected, or you can click on individual ones and then right click and delete them. So, and then I want you to create a polygon which has multiple vertices. So let's create a sample polygon. Maybe it'll have 20, 25 vertices or something like that. So now what we're gonna see here is replace generalize tool. So in this generalize tool, what happens is when you click on that, and first you have to select the feature you want to generalize and then click on generalize and type in an offset of I don't know, perhaps 10, and see what happens. It is slightly, the edges have become less sharp. It is more generalized. If I type in 100, you see how the edges are being generalized, so to speak. Let me tell you what's happening here. So when I say generalize and type in 100, since the unit is in feet, so it's gonna calculate the distance between each vertex, or each click. So if the distance between those two, whatever is between 100 feet of those two vertices will be eliminated, which means it is reducing the number of vertices. So let me show you what's happening. So I click on this, you see all these different vertices here, right? So when I click on generalize and click 100, let's see how many vertices you get. You get 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see what's happening within, if the line segment is more than 100 feet, it's gonna eliminate all the vertices between that 100 feet. So that's what is generalizing. And then this is used when you are trying to actually save some disk space, sort of a thing. You don't usually use 100, maybe I use, I don't know, 10 or 20 or something like that. Maybe 25 perhaps. So just to generalize the features enough so that I can save some disk space. This is extremely critical when you're working on huge databases. Let's look at smoothing polygons. When I click on smooth and I don't know, perhaps type in 10 feet, you see what happened? It's gonna add a vertex for every 10 feet and it's gonna smooth the layer. If I type in, I don't know, 100, let's see what happens. You see that's really not the desired result. You want to smooth it enough to actually create a nice clean feature. Maybe this can be used for some generalized abstract, identifying some zones or something like that, but it really depends on what you're trying to create. So I'm going to click on these two, click delete, click on this and click delete. So let's see some more advanced features. So what if I want to create a line of certain length? So I want to create a zone. I know one of the sides is only 250 feet, so I'm gonna create a new feature and then go anywhere else, it doesn't matter where, and then right click and click on length. I'm gonna type in 250 and see what happened here. It doesn't matter where you actually move your sketch tool, you're gonna get 250 feet length on all 360 degrees from the point of origin. So I'm gonna click here and now I know that that line segment is 250 feet. So, and towards the bottom I know it's 500 feet, so I'm going to click on length again and type in 500. So, and then I know this is perhaps I don't know, 300 feet, length is 300, and then I'm going to right click and change. You can give it direction, deflection, absolute, parallel, perpendicular, segment deflection. There are so many things. You can experiment with all these if you want. I'm just trying to show you how to actually control each and every point that you create. So I'm gonna type in F2 here, F2 to finish. So if you know the shortcut, hopefully Control Z is for undo. When you hit Control Z, the last thing that you have done becomes uh, essentially removed. If you want to redo it, you can just click on redo. So let's say I wanted to create a polygon like a rectangle, so accidentally I clicked the point here. Oh, you don't have to recreate this whole thing. You can say, damn it, I have to start over. But the thing is, you can essentially hit Ctrl Z on your keyboard and delete that last point and finish your sketch. So that's how you do it. So I'm going to select these two and click on delete. Hit delete on your keyboard, which will also delete the features, or you can go to attribute table or right click and delete. There are multiple ways to delete new features. So again, we already seen how to actually create some of these more regular polygons like rectangle and circle and ellipse and freehand and so on. So I'm not going to show them again. I'm just going to move on to the next one, which is digitizing commercial zone polygons. Let's do that. So I'm just going to delete any of the polygons I have already created, because I know that I was just practicing. So let's actually work on a real polygon zone. I'm gonna zoom to this layer, which is at the top left hand corner of the Mid Hill neighborhood, and now I want to actually create a commercial zone. So what I want to do is make sure it is snapping somehow, but maybe we can come back to it later. But this is how you create. I want to create a feature just like the book, so I'm gonna it doesn't need to be exact, guys. Don't worry about being absolutely perfect. This is just for your practice. Again, I'm in the rectangle mode, so which is the wrong one, so I'm just gonna hit Ctrl Z, hit escape, click on polygon here, and then I'm gonna start drawing my feature. So I'm gonna create my first commercial zone. So as you can see, essentially I'm just like clicking these points to create my shape. Okay, so looks that's close enough perhaps, but looks like I forgot to add a little one more vertex perhaps. It requires some more editing. I'm going to right click on this edge and click on insert vertex. I'm going to right click on this edge and click on insert vertex, and now I'm going to move this the vertex in the middle to actually create that little dent in the shape. I'm going to adjust this a little bit, and then I'm going to click on insert vertex. I'm going to click on insert vertex here. I'm going to reshape this. I'm just showing this to you so that you know how to edit an existing shape again. So after you are done editing, what you want to do is click on editor, click on save edit, so that your editing is saved. So that's how you create your commercial zone. So what you want to do is actually create the rest of the commercial zones just like what the book is showing right now. So I'm just going to show you one, because I'm not going to spend like the next hour creating these different zones, but you have to do it just to get enough practice on digitizing polygons. Oh, by the way, I forgot to delete this polygon that I first created. It looks like I'm going to select and make sure that that's the one I want to delete. I'm going to click on delete from the attribute table, and then I'm going to create the rest of my polygons. So I've finished editing the rest of creating the rest of the commercial zones. As you can see, my commercial zones are ready to go. So the next step is to add attribute data. So what I want is add like a zone number to these individual commercial zones, so that I can have like an identifier for these zones. I'm gonna open this attribute table, and then I'm going to add a field called zone number. I'm gonna click on this, click on add field. I'm gonna delete the zone number field I just created. I'm gonna delete that field. I'm gonna show you how to add the zone number again. So I added a zone number. So click on this table menu and add field, call it zone number. I'm gonna call it zone number 2. You can call it zone number, by the way. I'm gonna start editing these zone numbers. I want to edit them in a way that essentially go from 1 to 8. So I'm gonna right click and say edit features. I'm gonna start editing again since I stopped editing before. I'm gonna click on zone number. I'm gonna type in 1, and the second will be 2, third will be 3, and fourth will be 4, so on and so forth. I'm just gonna click on the cell and type in the number I want. 7, we know how to create fields. We already done it before, so I don't need to really go into details on how to creating that, but that's how you add all the zone numbers. I'm gonna editor, save edits, and stop editing. So now you have zone numbers for each one of these zones you just created. So what I want you to do, what the next step is to actually label these zones. I'm gonna right click and label. So what we want to do is go to properties, labels. For the labels, what we want to select is the zone number you created. Okay, you can make it Arial and the size could be 12, and then click on bold, apply, and as you can see the labels have come up. If you don't see the labels, right click and make sure the label features is enabled, or you can go to properties and click on this little checkbox, make sure that's turned on. Either way it's the same thing. So that's how you actually create your commercial zones and give them a zone number, add an attribute table to add an attribute to it, and then label them using the same attribute. So before we move on to the digitize to a point layer, digitizing point feature classes, what I want to show you is a couple more advanced editing tools. Right click and click on edit, start editing of the commercial zone, and I'm gonna draw a random commercial zone. So what if I want to split this polygon, right? I want to make 2 zones out of this, not just the 1 zone. So I'm gonna select this polygon, click on split cut polygons from the editor toolbar. I'm gonna draw right across it so that it cuts into 2. Now this is 2 different features. So that's how you use the cut polygon feature, and there are a bunch of other tools. The book might have them in a different order, but don't worry, it's all in there. You can follow the book and you'll be fine. Since I have to go back and forth from the presentation to the book, it's not really possible for me to follow exact order, but I will cover all the tools that are in the book. Okay, so let's move on to, let's stop editing and save the edits, and then I'm going to digitize a point layer. So the next step is to, a mistake I made before is not creating a shapefile instead of a feature class while creating the commercial zone, but that's okay. What you need to do is right click on the middle, and now I'm going to create a new feature class, and this is going to be a point feature class. The name is going to be evac shelter. If you want, you can give it an alias, which is evacuation shelters, and then right. So the name already, the thing already exists. So since I already done that, I deleted that feature class, and I'm gonna create a new feature class again, call it evac shelter, and then evacuation shelter, and then I'm gonna select point feature class. Since these are building points, then I'm gonna use the import functionality for the coordinate system. I'm gonna use the GST1. I'm gonna use the same coordinate system as Pittsburgh. Anything would be fine. I'm gonna use that, and the tolerances I'm gonna reset to use the same default. I'm gonna click on default configuration, click on next, and I'm gonna add here a new table. I'm gonna call it I'm gonna add a new field. I want the field to be called name. It's going to be a text field, and the length is going to be 50. That's fine. So this is where you actually control how to create the fields. So I wanted to show you both creating a shapefile and creating a feature class. That's why I created the first commercial zone as a feature class, and now I'm showing you how to create a new feature class within the GDB using this wizard. I'm gonna click finish. So I created a new evacuation shelter shapefile feature class, I mean, within the GDB. Now I'm going to start editing it. So I'm gonna click on from the editor toolbar, or right click on this and click on edit, and start editing that evacuation shelter. And I'm going to change the evacuation shelter icon, because you can select anything you want. You can select like something like that, maybe go with green or blues or whatever, colors doesn't really matter at this point. So I'm going to create these evacuation shelters. I'm going to I'm going to do the same things that the book does. I'm going to click on evacuation shelter. I'm going to create one. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we did this, we had to open 6.2. So I'm going to save this map, obviously, and stop editing. I'm going to open 6. So now I have 6.3 open. So now I'm going to add my evacuation shelters, which is within the mid row GDB. I'm going to drag and drop that. I'm going to change that symbology to like a square or anything you want. Essentially, I'm going to give it like a blue color so that it pops out a little more. And now I'm going to start adding these evacuation shelters. Right click on evacuation shelter, click on edit, start editing, and of course we're editing evacuation shelters. So I'm going to create a new evacuation shelter. Don't click on buildings, click on evacuation shelters. Now I'm going to follow the book and look at the image and make sure I'm creating evacuation shelters just as in the book. Okay, I want an evacuation shelter here. Maybe you want to zoom in a little more, it's up to you. And then you want to create an evacuation shelter. The second one is going to be right here, right somewhere. and then the third one will be here, and the fourth will be here, the fifth will be this one right here, and the sixth would be within this building, looks like, and the seventh one would be in this building. So essentially what we are doing is as part of the emergency preparedness for the neighborhood, we are creating evacuation routes and identifying shelter facilities so that this can be distributed among the neighborhood, probably saying okay, and obviously the local governments and the homeland, especially for homeland security. If there is an emergency, a map like this would be very useful. So we are creating this map of evacuation shelters, and later we'll create evacuation routes so that they can go to the closest evacuation shelter. So anyways, so now we have all the 7 evacuation shelters. What we need to do is open the attribute table and give it a name. So make sure that it looks something like the one in the book. The first one obviously is called the Wiley Medical Center. The second one is Webster. So essentially click on it and start typing WYLE Medical Center, and so on and so forth. So let me finish the rest. So I did finish the editing of the shapefile. I have all these evacuation shelters, and then I added a shelter name for each one of these. And now what we can do is label them. I'm going to right click and go to properties, and in the labels I'm going to label these features by shelter name. I'm going to, it's up to you what fonts and what colors you want to use. You can use Arial Narrow or something, Calibri, it's up to you. And then I'm going to use blue color so that it's identifiable. So that's a pretty good map, because you need to identify those shelters so that people know which shelter to go to when they are given an option. So the next step is to create a evacuation route layer, which is a polyline layer. So in the ArcCatalog tree, you can actually create this evacuation route layer, which we'll see how to create that. So I'm going to go back to my ArcCatalog, create that evacuation route. I'm going to create this as a shapefile, so I'm going to right click and click on new shapefile, and I'm going to call it evac route, and then this is going to be a polyline. And for the coordinate system, again you can import coordinate system of the streets. I'm going to click on OK. So I have my evacuation route. I'm going to drag and drop it to the map. So again, it's an empty layer, so I'm going to click a bold red outline so that I can find the route quite easily. And the next thing to do is start editing, pretty much. So for the evacuation route, again, we need to find a symbology with direction. So I'm going to select arrow at the end. I'm going to select outline color as red and increase the outline color to outline weight, line width to 2, and select OK. And now I'm going to start editing this. So I'm going to zoom into the area I want to create the first route, and here I'm going to enable my snapping to point, and end snapping, and vertex snapping, and edge snapping, so that I create the exact route along the connecting these shelters along the street pattern. So that's pretty critical. You do that. I'm gonna right click and start editing, edit feature, start editing. I'm gonna create an evacuation route. I'm gonna select the first point. So as you can see, it is saying evacuation shelter point. I want to connect that to the street edge. I'm gonna create so we need to create a perpendicular line apparently. So I'm gonna move to the closest street and I'm gonna right click and say perpendicular, so that it's absolutely perpendicular to the street. And then I'm gonna keep drawing. So now I know the line is perpendicular. I'm gonna keep drawing to the end. Line has to be snapped to the street end point, and then I'm gonna keep drawing this line along the streets. Keep clicking at the endpoints, and when I'm at the very end, I'm gonna connect the last point, which is the evacuation shelter point, Webster Food Pantry. I'm gonna double click and end that route. So that's the first route I just created. Now on to the next route. We need to create a series of routes. So the second route is going to be from the second point to the third. So I'm gonna draw this. Along, you might want to zoom in to make sure you are not snapping to the buildings. You have to snap to the streets and shelter points. I'm gonna double click. So this is how you create your essentially the shelter points, and then you're gonna connect number 3 to 5 to 4 and then to 6 and 7. So you have to make sure your map looks like the one in the book. So I'm gonna finish the rest, and you can practice doing this. I'm gonna continue working on this. So once I have that, once I'm done editing, the map's gonna look something like this. Make sure your map looks like that. If your arrows are not in the middle of the line, you might want to change them by changing the properties. Go to symbology, and then you might want line properties. Go to properties, and or the easiest way would be to actually select the arrow right middle and increase it to 2 and select red line and click OK, and that's how you get your the points to be in the middle of the route instead of actually at the end where you can't really see anything. So that's the map you want to create. At the end of it, save it, and that's your 6.3 and 6, I believe 6.4. So the next step, the next one is spatial adjustment. So we have seen all this again, creating a new feature class within the GDB, and then we created a new feature class and added spatial reference information, and then we know how to add new fields and create new feature classes. We know how to digitize new features by adding features and starting the editing, enabling the editing mode and digitizing new features, and stop and save edit. We also looked at how to create based on a reference point, which is essentially drawing around a shape or like an aerial photograph, which we will see, and then adding new feature classes. This is essentially just like creating new shelters, except in this example we are showing street trees, and then we're gonna start editing and start creating these different street trees, and maybe add a condition to the street trees and stuff. So and in the advanced editing we did look at how to specify an angle and a length, and then using the snapping toolbar and using the trace toolbar. Oh, actually we didn't see trace, which we can quite easily, and then we saw how to use the generalize tool and the smooth tool and the cut polygons tool, and then and now we are at spatial adjustments. So let's look at spatial adjustments. How to do spatial adjustment? What is spatial adjustment? So when some feature is created in a non-georeferenced environment, you need to actually transform that data or shift that data to fit the real world or a georeferenced environment. So somebody from your AutoCAD department, he creates a drawing of, let's say, of a campus or something, of a university campus, but that drawing is not georeferenced. You need to create, it doesn't have a coordinate system. What that means is, so you need to take those drawings and actually bring them into ArcGIS and add a coordinate system and readjust that drawing to actually fit the georeferenced environment. So there are different ways you can do that. One is called rubber sheeting. It actually means sort of like geometric distortions commonly occur because rubber sheeting is sort of like dragging and you know what rubber sheeting is. You try to fit like a rubber around a shape sort of a thing, and then a geometric sort of like correcting the flaws using geometric adjustments of coordinate systems. So and then there is edge matching, which is essentially if two different people are working on two different parts of the same layer. Let's say Missouri is working on its streets, Illinois is working on its street network, and both have to combine. They use something called edge matching along the Mississippi River or something, so that they can actually find a common ground. And then there is spatial adjustment. Let's see. Here in this example which we are going to work on right now is a Hamburg Hall CAD drawing, and you do not have geographic coordinates. This drawing right here has to go onto the map like this. So your map is inverted and it's not properly georeferenced, it's too big. So we'll see how to actually use map displacement links to actually correct this feature, to actually add some georeference into this. Let's go back to our map document and open 6.5. Or I think we should just start with an empty map, create a blank map, save changes. I'm just going to click no. You can click yes if you want to. And then I'm going to add aerial photographs, which is under the CMU campus folder under data. So I created a new blank document, and now I'm going to add data from the catalog. I know it is under the CMU campus files. I'm going to add the two aerial photographs. So essentially the two are actually tiled photographs, which means they are in two different tiles. That's tile 1, that's tile 2, as you can see. And then let's make sure these are georeferenced sort of a thing. So as you can see, when you scroll down in the source, it is actually spatial. There is a spatial reference. So this map actually has spatial reference, which is good because we do need that. The next step is to add transparency values to the aerial photographs. So let's add transparency values to these aerial photographs because they are a little too bright and we do want to see other features. So I'm gonna go to display tab and in the transparency I'm gonna add 20. Apply. As you can see, it's a slightly less sharp, which actually helps us. So once I do that, I'm going to zoom into the Carnegie Mellon CMU campus, and then so this is the Carnegie Mellon campus, and this is the building we are going to learn how to use spatial adjustment methods. So the next step is to add the building outline, which is the HBH shape file. Let's drag and drop it, and let's see, zoom to layer. Well, and I'm going to zoom to the entire features, and you can see the building is right here, but in reality this is the building we need. We need to sort of like create like an outline for, but we already have an outline that is created by our CAD person, and that's not matching up. It's inverted, it's not the right scale, so we need to sort of fix this. So how do we go about doing that? This Hamburg Hall HBH is what they call. I'm gonna change this to like a red so that it's slightly visible. I'm gonna change the width to 1.5, and then I'm going to move the building. So I'm going to zoom out a little more and make sure I'm gonna click on auto hide. I'm gonna zoom out to a scale where I can see the aerial photograph building and the actual building outline in the same extent, and I'm gonna right click and click on start editing these features. So I'm gonna select that building. I'm gonna say when I move to one of the edges, it's gonna give me this black 4 arrows in 4 directions, which means move. I'm gonna move that right next to my building, and I'm gonna zoom into that area so that I have more precision when I'm working with this. So as you can see, this is way too big and sort of not facing the right direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the building. Okay, so I'm gonna click on this little rotate tool, and I'm gonna click I'm gonna essentially press and hold, left click, press and hold. I'm gonna rotate it to the right direction. It need not be exact because I just want this to be in the same orientation as the other one. Okay, that looks close enough. So now the next step is to actually move this right on top of the building, maybe something like that. And now I do know that these two are at least like facing the same direction, if not exactly. And now I'm gonna transform the building onto the aerial photograph. How are we gonna do that? The first step is to enable the spatial adjustment toolbar, which is under the more editing tools, under the editing toolbar, click on spatial adjustment. And now I'm gonna create some displacement links. So essentially these displacement links are used to actually scale the drawing to the aerial photograph. I'm gonna click on new displacement link. I know that edge belongs, looks like the aerial photograph is not perfect, so somewhere there, and then that edge belongs there, and you have to find the pretty obvious ones because looks like. We can edit these lines, by the way. The first line, we need to move this slightly closer, because again you need to account for the actual image. As you can see, this is slightly distorted image because you can see the bottom of the building and the top of the building, and the building footprint is slightly different from the building roof, which means the aerial photograph is taken at an angle. So you need to account for those before you actually start drawing these lines. So you can adjust this stuff, adjust this stuff, maybe something like somewhere there. Again, this is going to be a trial and error for some of these points, so we'll do our best. So I'm gonna move to the other side. I'm gonna add some more displacement links. I'm gonna add that edge to this. So I added 4. You can add more. As you know, the more you add, the more precise the building is gonna be. But let's see what the effect of these 4 are. Let me add 1 more or 2 more. So I'm going to add these additional points. So I'm gonna say, go back to my spatial adjustment toolbar and say adjust. So I'll click on adjust, and you can see the building is it adjusted to the building itself. It's not gonna overlay right on top of the roof because the roof is slightly distorted. It's somewhere in between. As long as you are satisfied, looks like I'm pretty close, so I'm gonna leave it like that. And because this is just a sample exercise, we don't need to be super precise. The main thing to take away from this is the methodology itself. So sometimes you want to set adjust data, which is actually selected features or maybe all the features within a certain layer. You can do that. You can select adjustment methods, which will have rubber sheet, edge snap, and all that. Depending on what you're trying to do, you have to select the right methodology. Sometimes you have to play with these methods and see which one actually fits, gives you the best possible spatial adjustment. So that's how you actually adjust create features which are not georeferenced and bring them into onto like an aerial photograph sort of a thing. So you can click on save edits and click on stop editing, and that's it. That's how you do spatial adjustment. Next, on to assignments. Good luck.